Hello, family and friends across the social media landscape. Seems I'm going through many different channels now, so I will not misconstrue where I am by pointing out. So, thank you for joining me here on all the social media platforms that I'm on. And also know that if you want to share this with other folks who may miss my stuff or you have missed one, you can always find it on my YouTube page. YouTube, the station is The Dreamer Station. The Dreamer Station. And the playlist is Philosophy. So yeah, Philosophy. And also if you like what you're hearing, my podcast, Philosophy 101, wherever you download your podcast from. Alrighty, today it is 4:32 now, and it is a gorgeous day outside here in Brattleboro, Vermont. Hopefully, it's a gorgeous day where you are, although there is a countywide tornado warning, which is not normal for us. So, welcoming in the not normal. Tashi, welcome. Glad you're here. Um, and I don't mean to rub it in for those of you who cannot get outside quite regularly with all the restrictions that are out there. Just know that nature's happening and it's waiting for you when you're ready and when the world is ready. Today, and this segues beautifully into where we're going today. So I talk about innovation, I talk about the creative process, and I talk about the transformation space that we're in right now, the transformative space that we're in right now. And today I would like to step into the risk taking, the taking the risk to create, taking the risk to be genuine, taking the risk to let your unique self shine. And all of us have learned to be and are learning to be calculated risk takers. We, just like when we learned to walk, most of us were not instructed on how to walk, on how to play proper foot placement and how to shift in the hips and the undulation in the spine as you walk and how things go. We all learned to walk on our own for the most part, and it took some stumbling. And some of us learned later, and some of us learned sooner. And I think of my oldest son, who waited very long to walk. What he did early on, he could walk. He had the ability to, but he just did not. And I watched him one day, right before he took his first steps. Between the living room and the kitchen, there was one step down to get into the kitchen. And I watched him sit there right near the side of the wall, near the opening, and he put his hand on the side of the wall, sat down, and then stood up. Had the wall there for safety just in case he stumbled, and then he sat down and stood up. And then he sat down and stood up. And each time he got more confidence of sitting down and standing up. He stopped putting his hand up on the wall. He stopped reaching for the cabinets where the sink was. And he just sat down and stood up. And I want to say he did it about 15 times. And he had such confidence, such joy in his face that I knew that very quickly he was going to take that first step after he sat down and got up. And what I realized later, because it took him another week and a half before he took his first steps, he was gaining the confidence of what he thought was the hardest transition. So when you're walking, you fall down a lot. And he'd stumbled, he'd fallen down by pulling himself up and standing on things. And I guess he just wanted to be able to control that one thing that he needed to control, is the power to stand up or the power to sit down. And when he started to walk, yeah, he was a baby, so he did stumble a bit, but he had such confidence in everything that he did, in how he moved forward in the walking process. Like I said, most of us didn't learn how to walk. And that comes to mind because I had a back injury. And I worked with a gentleman who came up from New York, and we did a trade. I did some Reiki with him, and he did some Heller work with me. Because I had a problem with my ankle. I twisted my ankle, and he really got me to focus on walking again, and walking using my spine, using the pelvic tilt, using the hip movement. So there was twist, there was undulation, and as each foot came down, the heel strike and how the foot rolled through all the way down without holding. There's no hold. And he spent 45 minutes with me in one day on just taking my first step, which I was like, wow, how many of us ever took the time to learn how to walk? And what I had to do because of that back injury and the way that my body moved, I had to go back to the principles of how the human body works at its best. And so let's get into the space of risk management. Hey, Jay Bird, good to see you. Thanks for being here. Um, in risk management, so as a circus performer, a great deal of what we do is risk management. Whether you're just learning, whether you're starting out and you're doing just a forward roll, you have to mitigate or understand what the risk is. And a lot of us, we haven't ever gone over what are the steps of risk management. We just go, am I going to get hurt? Or is the likelihood that I'm going to be okay after this? And that's risk management. But there's more to it. Because when every part of your being is at risk of your thriving or diminishing, then it's really important that you consciously step out into this and make calculated choices, powerful choices about what risks you're taking. Are you risking your emotions? Are you risking your physical? Are you risking your spiritual? What risks are you taking? And so the first part of the risk management thing is the identify the risk. Identify what is the risk. And just identify the risk is I'm going to roll. And then analyzing that. What is going to be the effect? Oh, I could hit my head. I could bust my face. I could do this. Analyzing the risk. So step 2 is analyzing the risk. Identify it, analyze it. Then thirdly, numbers, and they don't have to all be in this order. Sometimes when you start to work through craftily, you're going to start to go, okay, what do I need to worry on, focus on? Now, there's no need for worry ever. Worry is just a down payment on a lousy future. Evaluate. So you got identify, analyze, evaluate. And evaluating is about checking out the quality, the quantity of this risk that you're doing and the magnitude of the risk. Is it a great risk? Is it a small risk? Is the risk that I'm going to bump my head or is it going to break my leg? And what is the magnitude and what is the quality of that risk? And then there's also in there is monitoring that risk. So you're constantly monitoring the risk, but it's also how we treat the risk and the treatment of the risk. And in that treatment, it's broken down into. Sorry, my notes are a little off here. I took notes today. The treatment of that risk are we going to avoid it? Can we reduce it? Can we share it? And what is the retention? What do we retain from taking this risk? And avoid it. Hey, you know what? I'm not taking that risk. I'm not going to jump over this gorge when there's a bridge right there. And yeah, the bridge could break, could fall, but the chances of it happening, because it's been here for a while, and I've just watched 3 other people go on it. I just reduced the risk by choosing to take the bridge. I've avoided the risk of jumping. I'm going to cross the gorge by taking the bridge, and now I have. And if I do that, am I bringing somebody on to get my back? You got to get my back. Am I going to share that risk? Will I share the risk with someone else? In the acrobatic realm, I share the risk quite often. I had many partners, other bases that were there, people who had my back when I was getting somebody else's back, and that was sharing that risk, so that the chance of of mortal injury was diminished slightly. Okay, slightly. It was always there. And then the retention. What am I going to get from this? What am I going to get from that risk? What am I going to retain? Am I going to retain a good feeling? Am I going to retain a higher level of physical ability? Am I going to retain an openness of mind? What is the retention? So in choosing in how we become calculated risk takers, and there we can go on, I can go on greatly on these things, and we can get into specifics if you would choose to seek me out and find ways we do this, okay? And it's identify, analyze, evaluate, monitor, and the treatment. Treatment, avoidance, reduction, share, or retention. It's simple, right? Simple when laid out. It's a little bit more difficult when put into practice. And what I'm working on is taking all that I've learned from the circus world, from the acrobatic world, from taking really high risks of broken bones and mortality for myself and for the ensemble that I worked with, and taking that into people's lives. So in your livelihood, into stepping it into your creativity, or into your professional, your work, and then also into your home. How are you working with your family, with your kids, your spouse, your partner? What risks and what are you doing when you? Because we all have a risk tolerance. We all have one. Some of us, or some of our risk tolerance is quite low or small, and some of our risk tolerances is great. I will run across the highway, and other people, I won't even get on the highway in a car. And so when you start to understand how we evaluate and how others evaluate, because this is also great for when you're working with someone else, and you can see how they analyze, how they identify, and how they work to monitor that risk, and go, I can work with that. Or, you know what, I would much rather not work with that. And you may choose to not do the treatment process of sharing with that person because it doesn't fit. It's not a cohesive, connective thing. Alrighty. So, and now, and I pose the question to you, somewhat rhetorically. You can also respond here. Is what risks are you taking? What risk are you taking? I don't mean I'm going to go into this grocery store and take off my mask. What risks are you taking, and what risks are you willing to take? And it could be simply, I'm willing to risk saying I love you and not get an I love you return. I'm willing to risk stepping into a space of I'm going to try something new. I'm going to take a college course. I'm going to sign up for that master's program. I'm going to take the risk to be helpful today. Yes, Tashi just put out. This is very much like they were having a conversation in their house about the dealing with what we're dealing with, COVID-19, and so many people are dealing with this risk: the mask, the no mask, going out in public. Do I go to the beach? Do I? Tamara, thank you for joining me. Do I go to the beach? Do I not go to the beach? Do I walk in the woods? Do I not walk in the woods? When I'm in the woods, do I pass by 6 feet? How do I deal with on the trail? We're dealing with the risk every day because the card we're dealt. We don't have a choice. We have to figure this out. And by being able to take this process down, then you can also be in a space where you're making calculated, conscious choices about the risk that you take. And right now, I'm the director of a summer camp, a sleepaway camp, and this is huge right now of how we move forward with running a camp where kids are coming from all over and how we can manage to keep everyone safe. It's not about my risk factor. It's about the risk factor of the population. How can we do that and keep them safe? And I have to go over these things, the steps, to figure out if it is possible and how to make it possible. Oh, yes. And risk, big risk. Do I go to the grocery store? The beginning of this, I didn't go to the grocery store for 2.5 weeks. I couldn't get my head around how I was going to do it. And now I'm going once a week, about once a week. And I'm all geared up. I got my PPE. I got my gloves. I even have a process of getting back in the vehicle after I've gone to the grocery store, keeping my gloves on. I do a whole cleanse of the gloves before I take them off. I cleanse my gloves and do the whole thing. Then I get in the car because I'm thinking about cross contamination, and that's huge. Though not just in the store, but what is the aftermath? My stuff, my groceries coming in the house. I don't buy a lot of groceries because I don't want to do the whole decontamination thing out in the garage. I have a whole process. This is where the groceries go down. Everything gets cleaned up. They go into another bag. These bags get folded up and they get put in a spot where they're going to stay for over a week to just be. I use those bags the next time I go to the grocery store. Actually, probably the second time because I have enough bags stored backed up. And I keep doing this little shuffle to make sure that the things entering my house have gone through the decontamination. And this is even more than what I did when I worked in hospitals doing the medical clowning program with the Big Apple Circus Clown Care Unit. This is more than what we did getting into the ICU. And I'm just bringing groceries into my house because I want to manage that risk. I want to cut it way back down because I want to have a space. Not that I don't. I want a space that is safe and healthy. And wow, there's a bunch of you here. It's really great to see everybody. Thank you so much. So yeah, we've done risk, and I was so busy trying to put together this calculated risk-taking guide that I completely floored on putting together a poem for you guys today. And we are at the point where I should just say, hey, who is that? The Juggernaut. Who are you? I see you there, but I don't know who you are. Okay. Thank you for joining me. And yes, I did identify. I'm identifying folks here. It's really great to see those of you who are here. All right, I'm going to pull something from random because this is how it works really great. We're going to go to the divine for a poem. All right, here we are. This is our risk being calculated risk takers. Kyle, thank you for joining me. Fantastic. So, beyond man, beyond woman, unfiltered by shades, regardless of height and width and girth. We are human. We are one. And I think that's so. How does that fall into the risk-taking thing? Whew! It's just a poem that I just blindly picked up. Let the divine pick for me. Beyond man, beyond woman, unfiltered by shades, regardless of height and width and girth. We are human. We are one. In our risk-taking, as we choose to take a risk, as we process that risk and we evaluate it and understand the magnitude and the gravity of it, we also must think about and process the larger magnitude of that. Like a stone in a pond, what are the ripples? How are we affecting the full body of human? Of what is, so I may be fine with that. What's happening in my community? What's happening in the broader sense of things? And that we are one. When there's a ripple in the pond. So you may think, oh, that didn't happen to me. But there are people who are affected by that. It affects your aunt, your uncle, your cousin, and they talk. And everyone who that affected, it goes down the line. That's the ripple, the talk. Some of the people that saw it, you may not have thought of anything of it, but somebody watched it and, oh my goodness. And they see this thing that happened, monumental. The ripples that happened from that. They saw it and it affected them. And recently I had mentioned also before, there was a television stolen from a house, right? The person was caught, they were sent to jail. The community isn't fine. They got the person, but now everyone is a little concerned that more places are going to get broken into. They caught the person who did this one, but it's now open that, hey, more things can happen. This is where people have things that can be stolen. it didn't calm the ripple in the pond. It punished the person who made the ripple, but it didn't calm the ripple in the pond. The community is still is unnerved. And what as we move through and we take our risks, we also go, hey, how can I bring a balance back to things? And that's part of that understanding in the monitoring, the treatment of it, the retention, the share, the reduce, the avoid, and what is that magnitude? And it's powerful to understand that yes, I'm taking calculated risks. And I'll point this back in the other realm, working with Cirque du Soleil, traveling around the world and taking the risk that we did. For some people, they were completely freaked out, but when we did it craftfully, we did it masterfully, those people may have been freaked out for a moment and empowered for more time after that, than more than that just that moment. I have actually encountered kids who saw me when they were very little and went, that's what I want to do. That's the ripple that was created. I took the risk, I learned the skills, I presented it for an audience, and there are other people who actually decided they wanted to risk in the same way or in a similar way and step out into being their boldest, biggest, brightest, most beautiful self. So, yeah, calculated risk taking. We're all calculated risk takers, and what we have a chance to do is actually breaking it down and becoming masterful calculated risk takers. And we can also start to share that process and help others become masterful risk takers, which is here I am doing this right here for you. I thank you very much for joining me from Newburgh, from where's everybody at there? Oh my goodness, from Brattleboro, from DC. Yeah, thank you so much. It's great to have folks out here to the world. I'm really glad that you're here. I'm really grateful that you are taking this journey and that we're sharing a lot of this together. And we are going to get through this. And bright side thinking, we are going to we're going to manifest a new way. I won't even call it normal. We're going to create a new way that magnifies each and every one of us, that just causes each of us to glow in a way that is unlike what anyone else sees, and our uniquenesses are allowed and wanted and have a place to shine. Alrighty, I've kept you, and I thank you, and I'm grateful for you being here. Yeah, so I'm here every day, 4:30, ready to share. Pass it on to folks, and I guess now I'm going on. Once this thing gets recorded, it goes up on Instagram TV, IGTV. So you can find me on YouTube. You find me on Facebook, on Instagram. Yeah, I'm all over the place, and I'm just trying to be here to be just powerful. And it's always not always positive. Sometimes I'm struggling through things, but I'm going to be uniquely me, and I'm going to shine. And I hope that you're uniquely you, and that you shine, and you continue to shine brighter and brighter. Alrighty, please stay safe, be well, go forward with passion and purpose, and remember that you are enough. And say it. I am enough. Yes, you are enough. All right. Have a great day. Thank you very much.